Prehistoric rock art. The pre-equestrian rock art, without horses and teepees, it becomes a lot more difficult to say this is Ute, this is not Ute. Sally Cole has pretty much included all of the prehistoric rock art in one style, an Uncompahgre style. And her dates, late date of 1000 AD would mean that none of it is Ute rock art. When you read on in her book, when she talks about Ute rock art, she says that Ute informants have told anthropologists that they often copied other people's rock art styles. But they did rock art for fun sometimes, and they copied old rock art. So when you look at this Uncompahgre style, big-horned elk and deer, bighorn sheep, maybe antelope, people, which ones are the old archaic elements and which ones are the Ute copies? It may be really difficult to tell. I think this is Uncompahgre style. This is old. It's from Gunnison, right on Gunnison between Hotchkiss and Austin. There's a little rock shelter. This one is from what I still would call Ferganchik's place, although you can't get there anymore. It's gates and you're paying guests to see his rock art.
Irrigation there, sprinkling system?
Yes, sir.
And it's completely wiped that out.
Nope. It's gone?
Some of them, we took
Some of them are
photos about
old.
12 years ago. We went back 2 years ago and a number were gone.
This one's still there.
But now they're good.
I trespassed to the picture. There's just to the left, there's a human figure with very large hands. We meant to get that in the slide, but it didn't happen. This is also probably pre-Ute Uncompahgre style. There's more from along the Gunnison. Lots of antlers. This is a very good picture. This is Chavanel Valley. There's lots of great rock art over Chavanel Valley, west of Montrose. This is probably Uncompahgre style too, but it looks very recent. See some other vague elements here, much more patinated than this. This is a lot lighter. Sort of talk about relative ages of rock art by the degree of patination. Did you have a question?
Yes, he's kind of hanging from something, or then at the end of the fingers, there's the double.
He looks like he's pole vaulting, but there's
Yeah.
a spear point on the end of it, and it's run through that bighorn sheep.
Oh, okay.
It's got there's a sheep here that's speared. This is a handprint. A lot of people call this two-loop representation of Atlatl, a spear thrower. And it might be a representation of it. It was often done with two loops to fit over the fingers, and then it was an extension of the arm, allowed you to throw a spear much farther.
I got a question, because that just kind of brought it up there. I was thinking about it earlier. I've seen some of them that the guy has to be 20 feet tall to do the rock art. And I just wondered if they had poles.
There must have been, a lot of the anthology stuff is so high up, there must have been scaffolding, trees leaned up.
I know they carved out notches for the hands to climb, but there was none.
But you can't paint or make rock art when you're clinging to the cliff. What we do identify as Ute rock art, prehistoric Ute rock art, has to do with certain elements. The bear was really very central to Ute religious practice. The bear dance was the main religious practice that the Utes engaged in. And we see depictions of bears, bear tracks, that kind of thing. That's often attributed to the Ute. We have two climbing bears in the Chavanel Valley panel, and then this third bear. Sally Cole called this late historic Ute rock art. And I don't understand why. There is an account that a painting on the Southern Ute Reservation, there's a painting of a bear dance that shows the same climbing bears. But to me, that doesn't make this necessarily historic period. It means that could mean that artist copied this rock art, this ancient rock art, and the rock art is old. I don't see anything that would make me say this is historic period. I think this is prehistoric. I think it's Ute, but I think it's prehistoric. in age. There's another bear, same story. It's classed as late historic, and I see no reason for it. You have a horned, perhaps human figure, and then this fierce-looking bear. The shamanist people say that this is a shaman in a bear suit. I don't know how they can tell. This is pretty typical of Western Colorado Uncompahgre style / Ute rock art. These certain scholars are saying these multiple part bear tracks with pad and heel and toes and claws all shown are Ute style bear tracks. I don't know if that's true or not. But you do see this in association with other, obviously, Ute rock art. This is in Mesa County. That Chavano, just a lot of stuff. Weird looking, I don't know if that's handprint. Trees, vegetation.
Had somebody taken and tore off some of that stuff? Is that why that's bare below?
The bottom is eroding. That's not vandalism. That's just eroding. It shows you the difference how you can give relative dates to rock art. This part of this element is much newer than the rest or the other three elements. These are starting to stain again. Well, maybe human footprints. They don't have claw marks with the toes like bear tracks often do. But they may well be used. Here's another one of these three-part bear tracks without claws. Also Shabano Valley. They call this newspaper rock in Shabano Valley. It's not the same as newspaper rock in Canyonland. A lot of Uncompahgre style, maybe some Ute. You see deer tracks, deer elk tracks, big footprints, human or bear. A lot of this may be a rider down here, but it's so faint. And then antelope or deer. Shabano Valley, this is clearly a Ute element, and it just shows you the difference between patination between these old deer or whatever that is, and this horse and rider. Very new by comparison. This Jean has a version of this on her textile over there, the nine-legged horse. It may actually be two horses running side by side, but there's still an extra leg.
Looks like a Viking ship.
Doesn't it? Maybe a Viking ship. I like that.
In the ground area, Jim took me up there, there is a cross that is chiseled in. You remember that, Jane?
Yes.
She went out on there. Do you remember that one? And I was wondering, it seemed like the same age between us.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
I thought it was photographed.
But the patination seems similar to that.
Yeah.
To that. You would expect, especially if it's a Spanish cross, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't necessarily be much later than Ute rock art, but perhaps the same age.
There's another one there in Chavano, down under a bush, there's a rock down there. It's got a Navajo logo on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A rock art?
Yeah.
Rock art that depicts a Navajo name?
Yeah.
I know of one other example of Navajo rock art up towards Gunnison. There are some Yabushe figures in a little shelter towards Almont.
Well, did you see all them in the caves? Did you see up there? They've all disappeared about there. One of the terrain, Gene has got a,
Oh, there's your names.
see that had been used, because there was one of the terrain, and then there was a, tooth bird, and,
Tooth bird. You do see there's some railroad employee rock art along the Colorado. I noticed.
this one,
Mostly inscription.
Can you open that up and turn it around here?
Now, these are pictographs, and correct me, Jim, if I'm wrong, but painted, not the incised or peck or whatever, which makes them very unusual in western Colorado. But also these figures are very unusual, you know, here,
Because these are Navajo. These are Navajo Yamashe.
and salad, onion salad. But anyway, they're so different from anything else. This is in a small canyon up above Alma. And here again, we have a lot of the bear track kind of art, the crop hatching, horned animals and so forth. And then quite up near where the little canyon begins, here where it's the painted figures. And I really tried to replicate in the colors of the yarn and in the embroidery the red and black. And so, you know, I did very careful drawing and photographs, so pretty much as near as you could replicate something. But unfortunately, they are fading fast. As far as I know, no one has actually vandalized them, but it seems like something in the way of pollution in about the last 5 or 6 years is really taking out a lot of the Gunnison County petroglyphs. But I've also done these in a sand painting. I used 12 different layers of sand to replicate this book.
Thank you. This is probably Uncompahgre style, but not used. It looks quite old. Weird. Not a great picture, but this is also a pre-used Uncompahgre style. It's unusual, the hollow bodies rather than entirely pecked. This is one of the older styles, if you believe in older styles of Uncompahgre style. North Shannon Valley linear abstract. It looks new. It looks to be the same age as the Ute stuff to me. Although this is newer than that. This is older than those. I don't know what this is. This is, I've never seen anything like it. This is also shown in the valley. For a minute I thought it was cattle brands, but it's not. It's prehistoric. Prehistoric rock art. This is from southeast Utah. I've been looking at Anasazi pictographs all day, and I came across this, and it was so very different. 3-fingered guys, each wearing one feather, and we have the bear track next to them that strongly suggests that this is Ute. Really Ute petroglyph. This is that Escalante Canyon site. It's Headlong Gunnison in Escalante Canyon. Mostly these are not a very good picture. Mostly bighorn sheep in this one.
How high off of the riverbed would that be approximately? 10, 15
No,
feet?
it's way up. It's 150 feet, perhaps.
Then a question I had was, could erosion of the riverbed indicate, or why it would be down that much lower, or relatively speaking, why it's that high on the rock wall?
I think it's just that's where the cliff, the good canvas was to put rock on it. Was up on the higher part of the cliff.
Okay.
I don't think that it's changed any. This is also that panel. Jean's got some. I think that probably these very creatures are on one of her textiles over here. Might be antelope, the straight horned animals. I'm not sure. This is right next to that previous panel. Again, classic Uncompahgre style creatures. But look at these. Each one of these animals has been killed, been pecked in the heart. This is a bullet hole here, but the rest of these are intentional pecking with a sharp stone, and in the heart of each of these animals. I don't think this is kids who were raised wrong. I think this is Utes who did this. Vandals tend to scrawl their girlfriend's name or dirty words. They tend to wreck things. And this is very focused killing of these animals. There's some wolves or coyotes up here also have been killed. This is important. This is someone who believed that manipulating these pictures, ancient pictures, they could affect the present day in some way. This is magic that we're perhaps I'm just making this up, perhaps this is hunting magic. If you killed one of these elk on your way out, perhaps that would help ensure success in your hunt. There's other explanations. I have one more story, Ellie, and then I'll be quiet.
Is this from this one?
This is from the Escalante Canyon.
Well,
Yes.
that wasn't that way years back, when I first saw it.
This is just a part of this panel.
Yeah, I know. But, them spots were on there, Gene, I noticed that.
Um,
Years back.
Okay,
Had a whole effect on that.
okay. To take this same concept, and perhaps I'm wrong about this panel in particular, I want to tell you a story that was told to me by an archaeologist. About 15 years ago, there's a rock art panel outside of Moab, Utah, just going north out of Moab, across the river, and the next canyon is Courthouse Wash. On the side, at the mouth of Courthouse Wash, there's a wonderful rock art panel. It has Barrier Canyon, Anasazi, and Fremont styles of rock art. About 15 years ago, someone went to that panel with a rock hammer and eradicated specific elements from the panel. Didn't just damage them, removed them entirely. And they weren't stealing them, they were pounding them out of existence. Everyone, of course, was horrified. It's a terrible thing to do. And it wasn't several years later that I heard a story of why that happened. My friend Chas Cartwright was an archaeologist in Monticello, and he heard this story from a Navajo man who heard it from another Navajo man. Apparently, a little girl down the reservation south of San Juan became very sick, and her father took her to a medicine man, a hand trembler. There was a diagnosis of illness. And the hand trembler told the father that the little girl had been attacked by a skinwalker, a witch. And she was very sick and she was going to die if they didn't take some specific action to fight this witch. And the healer drew a picture of the rock art panel. He said, these elements are what the witch is using to make your girl sick. And you have to destroy them. And the story goes that the man went to Moab, eradicated those elements of rock art, and the little girl got better. That's an example of what of how rock art interacts with, perhaps, with old rock art interacts with the living people in a way. That's really all I have to say, and thank you for the opportunity of letting me talk. That's saying nothing.
Well, I like the comments of the ones who did this and what's going on. But it's one that fascinates me, Jim, we never know. And like Jim said, I never pretend that I had an interpretation of what the original artist did. But then I like to do them myself because I get a different feel for them than I actually recreate them. We want to thank you, Jim.
Sally Cole. I actually have about a name for a book is Legacy on Stone. I actually have about 20 copies of a reading list if anybody's interested in any of these topics. I made some copies in case.
We have
That's
some
my
monies
style.
that have been purchased, and I think you, the people who put down the last listing, know who you are. But thank you very much for buying those cute rabbits. We've got some homemade treats out in the hallway for some refreshments, so you're welcome to get up and have a little and chat.